doing?
Kenny Omega!
To me, they are the greatest tag team in the world.
The fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit.
Like many greats in the world of professional wrestling, Hogan, Hart, Cena, CM Punk's name will always register a reaction. But as time has gone on, that reaction has become more mixed. In the past decade, we have seen Phil Brooks go from the voice of the voiceless to an anarchist leader against the establishment that was WWE, to a divisive hero who might have seen himself live long enough to become the villain. The Elite felt like a spiritual successor to the revolution CM Punk started, making their names outside of the WWE corporate system, and riding that momentum to start the second biggest wrestling promotion within North America. The civil war within AEW in the year of 2022 did not only see black eyes given to the reputation to some of the sport's greatest, it also saw a divide within the cult-like fan base that once joined together in revolution and now are marred by controversy. Presumably through the legal process, we will never fully know what happened that late summer night in Chicago. But given the facts that we do have and context clues, we can be able to take a deep dive to see what went wrong in All Elite Wrestling. And after we find these answers, will we be able to see how AEW changed? Will we be able to see how once the promised land of professional wrestling became front page dirt sheet headlines? So sit back, relax, maybe crack open a sparkling water in your favorite box of muffins, because we are going to take a deep dive into the curious case of CM Punk versus the Elite. This is Extreme League Wrestling. Let's dive in.
And I'd like to think that maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead.
We'll hear from CM Punk, the newest addition to All Elite Wrestling.
Well, hang on. Our story begins a bit farther back than this.
It's a very creatively stifling, toxic environment. And like that was the thing when I was the champion, I was very much in like I gotta lead this locker room and I gotta do this and I gotta lead them by example. So I turned to Hunter and I said, all due respect, I do not need to wrestle you. You need to wrestle me. I do not want to wrestle you. I seriously resent you for not putting me over 3 years ago when you should have. That would have been best for business.
January 27th, 2014, CM Punk walks out of WWE. You see, while in the greater world a decade really isn't that large of amount of time, in the world of pro wrestling, it's basically a lifetime. Vince McMahon and WWE had long before this became the only name in town, monopolizing the North American wrestling landscape. The straight-edge superstar was a breath of fresh air compared to the decades-long narrative of big beefy men Vince McMahon had placed in front of us. And while he did not fit the typical physical archetype of a WWE main eventer, he was the biggest draw in WWE at the time, and he just walked out of the company. Social media was not the beast that it is now, however, and with the classic WWE non-compete clause in full effect, for CM Punk we would have to wait to hear what type of pipe bomb he was brewing. And let me tell you, it was Oppenheimer-sized.
Hey, Colt Cabana, how you doing?
You see, CM Punk finally reared his head to give his side of the story on his longtime best friend Colt Cabana's podcast, The Art of Wrestling. And if you thought CM Punk was unfiltered before, you've seen nothing yet. This 2-hour-long shoot interview gave us gruesome details about CM Punk's frustration with WWE, Triple H, and the outdated management style of Vincent Kennedy McMahon. This included the mishandling of a staph infection by WWE medical team member Chris Amon, Vince McMahon's out-of-touch creative directions for the company, and Triple H using his position in the company to have matches to elevate his own stock while undermining and burying younger talent. But why would CM Punk give up professional wrestling when WWE is the only game in town?
And my lawyer was like, I'll tell you right now, he's not going to TNA. He absolutely despises professional wrestling and he wants nothing to do with it. He says he's never going to wrestle again.
To borrow from another Chicago great, it feels like Jordan retiring out of nowhere after the Bulls win their first 3 championships. One of the greatest to ever do it deciding to walk away for their own well-being is kinda hard to argue against, while heartbreaking to hear. So for the health of both Phil Brooks and CM Punk,
it was objectively the right decision. Even though CM Punk went out there to see what else was there for him in the great wide world, the wrestling world still continued to call for him, hoping that one day he will return to save us again. In the meanwhile though, if you're a wrestling fan and don't like the WWE product, what else is out there to watch?
Well, Ring of Honor is still alive and kicking. TNA, Impact, Global Force, Taco Supreme, whatever they're called now, is still somehow going strong. And also there's this other company starting to make waves in North America that CM Punk slightly dropped in his infamous pipe bomb promo. New Japan Pro Wrestling. They seem to be making noise with this new American-style faction with... Wait. Do you guys hear gunshots?
Bullet Club.
As CM Punk exits WWE, there's another group in New Japan that has just been formed. Bullet Club. And they weren't only going to take over New Japan Pro Wrestling, they were about to take over the damn world.
Originally founded by the now Finn Balor in WWE, Bullet Club is a stable of foreign heels. Loud, cheating, in your face, the group brought the American pro wrestling style to Japanese audiences, and somehow created one of the biggest heel groups since the 90s in the NWO. As a group, they collected gold all around the world, but little did they know at the time, a tidal wave was coming soon that no one could prepare for. You see, the person who would dethrone Finn Balor as the leader of Bullet Club, AJ Styles, just signed a new WWE contract and would be leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. The group needed a shake-up, and more importantly, a new leader, since Styles was about to go off into the land of McMahon. To some, they might see this as a giant mess for one of their most popular groups. Well, when you have a mess, you gotta call a cleaner. A subgroup within Bullet Club, the Elite were now in the driver's seat. Kenny Omega was now the leader of the BC Boys, soon becoming the golden boy of New Japan Pro Wrestling with his rivalry with Kazuchika Okada lighting up the internet wrestling world. Even following that hype to New Japan's biggest show of the year, Wrestle Kingdom, where he fought thought to be WWE lifer in Chris Jericho. But Bullet Club and the Elite are not a one-man show. The Young Bucks saw their character climax in the Indies and in New Japan around this time, being noted as the best tag team in the world, while keeping fans on their toes with their topical t-shirts and Twitter bios. In addition to the undercard, Hangman Adam Page saw himself rise in relevancy in the group, and the American Nightmare Cody saw himself reinvigorate his character and pave new roads outside of the world of WWE.
This momentum was stopping no time soon. And when you have a revolution locked and loaded, sometimes you just have to pull the trigger.
Welcome everybody to a night of love, a night of energy, a night of passion, a love letter to professional wrestling.
All In was one of those once-in-a-lifetime events that will live in wrestling lore forever. To see an independent show sell out a 10,000-seat venue was insane at the time. So where do you go from here? Well, after you've gone all in, you have to follow it up with an all-out revolution.
I'm Chris Jericho, and I am all in with All Elite Wrestling!
Finally, after years of monopolization, the North American wrestling scene finally had an alternative. No longer were wrestling fans stuck to the same suckering succotash as before. All Elite Wrestling was here. It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that one group's draw was so big to where it metamorphosized into its own company. And of course, the cherry on top of all of this, Cody, Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson were all given executive vice president roles within the company of AEW.
The cries and prayers for the Second City Saint grew louder and louder. Now, would these prayers be heard, or would we be forced to put these dreams to sleep?
That's what I've heard for 7 years. I heard you.
So, here we are. The original has joined the spiritual successor. And look, CM Punk's old buddy Colt Cabana is here. All should be right in the world, right? Well, here's the thing. Vince McMahon's pride and ego were never going to allow CM Punk to go shoot on his company in a public forum without some type of revenge. After the infamous Art of Wrestling podcast interview, WWE Dr. Chris Amon followed a defamation lawsuit against the Second City Saints. While Dr. Amon did not have much of a case here, while publicly stating that the interview did not affect his professional career, he really did not make a great impression on the jury. But the goal here was to never to win a case against Phil Brooks and Scott Colton. but to drag it out as long as humanly possible, because frankly, Vinnie Mac is flipping the Doc's bills here. Vince could not stop his biggest draw from walking out of the company, but he could make his life as stressful and financially straining as possible. I mean, this is the same guy who fired CM Punk on his wedding day, so are we really that surprised? Regardless of intent, this case placed a mental, emotional, and financial toll on CM Punk and Colt Cabana's friendship, to the point where, by all accounts, the two have never really spoken since winning the case, and with CM Punk filing a civil suit over legal fees due to the case. After all this mess, while CM Punk was off writing comic books and fighting in the UFC, Colt Cabana was still an active wrestler, and this is where he became really great friends with, the Elite. His friendship with the group grew to a point to where he became one of All Elite Wrestling's first ever signings. But you see, something strange happened after one Bill Phil became All Elite. We started to see less and less of Colt Cabana on our screens. To be fair, the company had just had a lot of hot name signings like the aforementioned CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole Bay, all signings that were just bigger than the indie veteran. It's all strictly business, but hey, there still has to be some way for Tony Khan to use this lovable indie darling, right? Well, that was until the dirt sheets got involved. Rumors started to circulate that the AEW locker room was not the paradise it was once perceived to be. Places like the Pro Wrestling Observer and Fightful Select were reporting that CM Punk went to Tony Khan and asked for Colt Cabana to be removed from AEW, a request that was then intercepted by the Elite, asking for TK to not release Colt Cabana, but to sign him to a Ring of Honor exclusive contract. Colt Cabana did eventually move to Ring of Honor, but being that Tony Khan had just purchased the fledgling company and Colt Cabana had so much history within it, it just kinda made sense. This was a report by Dirt Sheets anyway, it's all rumor and hearsay, right? Now, here's the thing. This is where the story becomes to break and splinter a bit. The next year's worth of events have created the most significant impact to not only the reputation of all men involved, but to AEW and their fan base. After an amazing year wrestling the likes of Eddie Kingston, Darby Allin, and arguably having feud of the year with Maxwell Jacob Friedman, it felt like a natural progression for CM Punk to challenge then AEW World Champion Hangman Adam Page for his title. Page had arguably gone on the biggest run of his career, finally ending the reign of the pro wrestling god and his former tag team partner Kenny Omega.
As CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page built their match to Double or Nothing for the AEW World title, a lot of us clamored to see what story would be told next. Would CM Punk give us the story that we waited 7 long years for, or would Hangman Adam Page prove to CM Punk that this was his house? It was a bit weirder than that.
Your pettiness, your cowardice was more of the same. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't hate you. I almost pity you. And I have no respect for you and what you've done since you've gotten here. This is my home, and this Sunday at Double or Nothing, I will not be defending this championship against you. No, for the first time in my life, I will be defending All Elite Wrestling from you.
What?
I say this as a pro wrestling fan that reads dirt sheets and rumor sites fairly frequently. My friend group and I had no idea what Adam Page was referring to here. As a longtime All Elite Wrestling fan, we were used to the fourth wall breaking that the company tended to do. But besides a small dirt sheet rumor, there was nothing to present CM Punk as a bad guy that would want to destroy AEW. It almost felt like you were going into a party and walked in right as the hosts were in the middle of a big fight. Something just felt off with this segment, and also the following match at Double or Nothing. Clunky promo and clunky match aside, CM Punk would pick up the world title here. So you know what? Who cares? The summer of Punk has begun again. I'm sure this title reign will be long and fruitful for all involved, right?
Good news and I got bad news. Which one you want first? Because the last thing I ever wanted to feel is like I was letting any of you down. The last thing I ever wanted to do was leave you feeling disappointed. Hey, here's the bad news. The bad news is I'm injured and I need surgery. A couple of things are broken. The biggest one is my heart. I'm champion for a reason, and I'm gonna show you exactly why. I will come back bigger, faster, stronger, and hungrier than ever before.
Well,
4 days after winning the AEW World title, CM Punk would tragically break his foot while making his entrance on the following AEW Dynamite. The Summer of Punk was officially cancelled, but not to fret. With his healing time presumed to be around 3 months, he would be healed and ready to go by September's All Out pay-per-view, where he would face the ace of AEW, Jon Moxley. This assured that the AEW World title would be in good hands in Punk's absence. Upon his return, we would see him go on a Rocky III style angle against Moxley, leading to that year's pay-per-view. And the Elite Boys have also been busy. After taking some much needed time off after losing his AEW World title, Kenny Omega would return to team with the Young Bucks to compete in the inaugural Trios Championship tournament. Belts that, mind you, were specifically created for the Executive Vice Presidents. Everything finally seemed to be coming together in the land of Elite after a tumultuous, injury-riddled, and chaotic summer.
After that pay-per-view feed was cut off, we saw AEW change. Long gone now was the promised land that stood before it, but now is a house divided between performers, fans, and the wrestling world in general. That late Chicago night will change this company forever, and one man will change it forever.
What did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed, dumb like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and go into business for himself? Okay, so you fancy yourself a journalist. Would you say you're friends with Scott Colton? If you fancy yourself a journalist, even if it's for the silly world of professional wrestling, and you have journalistic integrity, people who report things, mostly that are and slanderous lies against myself, if you are friends with somebody. I haven't had anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that. It's unfortunate that I have to come up here and speak on this when I'm on my time and this is a business. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's business. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have all to do with him. What did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed, dumb like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and go into business for himself? But that's where we're at right now. And I will still walk up and down this hallway and say, if you have a problem with me, take it up with me. Let's go.
Now, what happened in that locker room may never truly be known. Frankly, it's a he said situation, and legally, with the non-disparagement clauses presumably Tony Khan handed down to everyone involved, we may never truly know. And everything else we truly kind of have to go off here is hearsay and third-hand accounts. But we're going to try to piece it together.
But here's what we can confirm. CM Punk did in fact take issue with the reports of him trying to get Colt Cabana fired from All Elite Wrestling. He believed that the Executive Vice Presidents and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks abused their power, which objectively wasn't too off base if you've seen any of AEW's booking around the group, and not to mention the struggles of that booking when they're not there. By the way, Phil, running a Target is actually a very difficult job. Leave those red shirt wearing retail employees alone, damn it. Punk would also state that rumors like this jeopardize the company and everything that they have built. AEW had just posted its biggest gate ever, so to be fair, he was somewhat right in this statement. Mind you, also during this verbal tirade, Tony Khan, the actual owner of All Elite Wrestling, is slowly becoming the personification of internally screaming. At some point that evening, after Punk had gotten his fill of calling the AEW locker room childish and calling out Colt for sharing a bank account with his mother, he got his belly full of muffins and sparkling water and went back to his locker room, where his trainer Ace Steel, Ace Steel's wife, and Punk's dog Larry were waiting for him. At some point, whether by force or not, the Elite entered CM Punk's dressing room, where a brawl ensued. We also did not quite know yet, but CM Punk had torn his tricep in his match with Jon Moxley and would have to relinquish the AEW World title. The next edition of AEW Dynamite saw Tony Khan announce that not only would the World title be vacated, but the Trios titles as well. Following an internal investigation, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk, and Ace Steel were all handed down lengthy suspensions. Suspensions were also handed down to anyone even near the brawl at the time, including Christopher Daniels, the head of talent relations, Michael Nakazawa, and Pat Buck.
Look, I can go on and on for hours about this entire thing, but I'm no Sean Ross Sapp, I'm no Dave Meltzer, I'm just a fan, at the end of the day. And really, that's who loses in this entire situation. CM Punk, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page might have black eyes to their reputation, sure. But us as fans are truly the ones that are losing, both in our relationships with each other and with our enjoyment of the product. Ego, pride, and bitterness over old wounds was truly the thing that hurt AEW's reputation. I don't wish to dwell on the past, but humor me here for a moment. As a person who grew up in a home with people who struggled with addiction, CM Punk's brand of straight edge, in-your-face living spoke to me, like it did many other people. Those 7 years he was out of the world of professional wrestling were difficult, and I fell out of love with the product, because there was really no one who made me feel seen and heard like CM Punk. That was until Bullet Club and the Elite reigned to prominence. And there I spent my college years staying up till 3 a.m. with my best friends as we watched Wrestle Kingdom. As we got to see Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada's giant rivalry unfold right in front of us. We got to see the cheekiness of the Young Bucks, and we even named our friend group the Club because we were so into everything they were doing. It made me fall in love with pro wrestling again, like CM Punk originally made me fall in love with pro wrestling. At some point in All Men Involves careers, they were the alternative. They were the punk rock version of pro wrestling. They were the thing that brought in new fans and was a breath of fresh air for those of us who were tired of the corporate WWE was doing. Unfortunately, now that fan base that they inspired is now splintered, forced and separated with their own parasocial relationships. AEW fans feel fractured in and of themselves when we once were all against this great evil. But what happens when the world is no longer black and white and is in living color?
Now it truly feels like you can't watch Dynamite or Collision, or frankly any AEW product, without the debate of CM Punk and the Elite coming to the forefront of the conversation instead of what's on screen. If CM Punk truthfully had these grievances against the executive vice presidents of AEW, this could not have been the way to handle it, and there's infinitely better ways to do so. I am flabbergasted to understand the reasoning why in front of God and everyone at a media scrum, where you are representing a company in which you are world champion, you would decide to handle things in this way. And in regards to the Elite, let's go ahead and disregard the rumor about Punk wanting Colt Cabana fired from AEW, which, by the way, if true, are horrific, immature, and horribly inappropriate. You are, at the end of the day, yes, an executive vice president. What that title means isn't 100% clear. Regardless, it still shows that you have responsibility and pull in this company, meaning that your actions and the reflection of those actions are on the company itself, and you need to hold yourself to a higher standard. Also, if you are a world champion returning from a massive injury and you are the biggest draw in the company, you cannot grandstand and sit there and talk about how other people are risking the company on their biggest show of the year when you were literally doing the same thing. It goes precisely against what you are preaching, and you're kind of showing your ass. And yes, that standard is above getting into a giant backstage fight in the locker room of your biggest show of the year. If you remember from a couple of years ago, The Undertaker went on this big interview tour once he retired, and he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. The entire wrestling world clowned the guy for saying that the locker room was better back in his day when men used to carry guns and knives, and now people in the locker room just worry about playing video games and looking pretty. And what people tend to miss in that conversation is that we disagree with The Undertaker's opinion here because we have moved on from that toxic male way of dealing with things. It's not good for business, and it's not good for the individuals involved. And at the end of the day, this is still a workplace where you simulate combat, but it's still a workplace. If you have a disagreement with a subordinate or a higher up, you cannot solve your issues by fighting each other. And if you are a locker room leader, you should act like it and show that there's no room for this within your locker room.
I want to show you 2 tattoos. One is CM Punk's logo I got 2 days after he returned to professional wrestling after 7 years. The other one is a King of Clubs playing card giving the 2 sweet hand gesture. Both mean a lot to me. But even within myself, I find this divide. Because let's be clear, all men involved are wrong. In some way, shape, or form. Whether you want to admit it or not. I didn't want this to be a project that took sides. But I can tell you this much. If you're a world champion that is this concerned about someone ruining $1 million gate for your company, in which you are the world champion of, and you want to be a locker room leader, this is not how you do it. You don't go out into a press conference and air your dirty laundry and antagonize everybody. And also, if you're an executive vice president, whatever the hell that means, you cannot go and start fighting people who work for you. You just can't. And regardless if the rumor of them leaking things to the dirt sheets is true, if it is, why are you doing this? You are held to a higher standard, not only as an executive vice president, but as a world champion. And regardless if you work for a place that simulates combat like AEW, there is still no reason to settle things in an unprofessional manner like a backstage fight. I never wanted this to be a project that took sides. Both parties are wrong. But what this has done to the greater wrestling world is bigger than people fighting about what's going on in the dirt sheets. The reason why wrestling is not as big as it was back in the Attitude Era is simply this. There's a maturity problem, and it's more widespread than the fandom. Because why would you want to join something with so many people who cause so many problems, who fight about the smallest thing? If you want wrestling to be better, you have to lead by example. And if these are the people that you're modeling your moral actions by, you really need to take a look in the mirror. I love professional wrestling, and I want more people to get into it. This insane amount of physical prowess mixed with storytelling makes things that happen in the squared circle uncomparable to any other type of media. In closing, what can we learn from this? Well, people we are fans of are not perfect. We ourselves are not perfect, and we are in charge of our own actions. You can be a fan of someone and see that they are both objectively right and objectively wrong. But regardless of what happens in the dirt sheets, we should not hurt this community that we have built here on the internet for professional wrestling. Honestly, I hope all parties involved can put the past behind them. The Elite versus CMFTR has money match written all over it, and it would be a once-in-a-lifetime event. If egos don't get in the way, we could be seeing one of the greatest trios matches of all time. But with all men involved being on separate shows, who truly knows? But then again, never say never in the world of professional wrestling. In closing, I'm gonna steal a line from one of my favorite wrestling YouTubers. Like what you like, don't be a dick, and watch pro wrestling. And that has been the curious case of CM Punk versus the Elite. What do you guys think of this entire situation? Let me know in the comments down below. I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this. Thank you for supporting this new format I'm trying out here. I really wanted to shake up the channel a little bit and kind of go into the next phase of Extreme League Wrestling. So I appreciate you guys for checking this out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video. Also, what should be my next topic? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Extreme League Wrestling, and we'll catch you next time.